Welcome to our webinar today on restricted use licensing and service level agreement strategies to use with your SaaS vendors. My name is Mike Zuckerman, Knoa's Chief Marketing Officer. The questions we will answer in this session include: what are restricted use licenses? What are the trade-offs for my organization? If my vendor offers these to me, what tools do I have to help me manage these licenses? And how can this be used to impact positively and manage service level agreements? Knoa is a leader in user experience and performance management. We've licensed our technology to 20% of the Fortune 50, and actually we're just a hair under 20% of the Fortune 100, with hundreds of global 5,000 customers as licensees. And we've been implementing our products across broad technology sets, certainly SAP. We have many customers around the world, Siebel, some of the largest banks and mining companies and manufacturers. Leaders in every industry are Knoa customers. Many logos, perhaps a topic for another day, but all the companies that you're aware of on a global basis. The cloud visibility gap remains the front and center issue. You really don't have control over what your vendor can report to you, and you really don't have good means to validate the data, because they really don't want you accessing their back-end servers. They really don't want you, doing anything to report performance. They'll do it for you. And in truth, over time, with so many SaaS products, this just doesn't work for a lot of you. For the large installations, let's say you have thousands of seats of Salesforce in North America, most of those relationships are going to be supplemented by your IT team. You're going to have 500 or 1,000 custom transactions or screens in there. You'll have all the same issues you had with major enterprise deployments, though your cost will certainly be perhaps lower, but you'll have a lot less visibility to manage it. All of the control is in the SaaS vendors' hands, their reports, their data. Service level agreements across the board are more difficult. How do you resolve user complaints with vendor reporting? And of course, your legacy APM tools, which are most of them architected many, many years ago, are pretty useless for cloud-based technologies. Knoa UEPM allows you to gather metrics and take steps to manage your cloud-based SaaS vendor relationships. We see everything that the user does with our desktop agents, so we know system level error and user level error and the time and impact it has. This is unique to Knoa. We see everything. There's no scripting or any other work to do, and we automatically aggregate this into alerts and reports that show you the areas of opportunity, as well as supplement investigation work that you have. And then when you have this data, now you can take action to realize value, optimize performance. And in the case of restricted use licenses, you have a very, very particular benefit that you can accrue. So in the case of some vendors, there's a notion of a restricted use license. This is a user for which access to the SaaS product might be limited to perhaps 1 hour per day. And the question that users have of us is immediately, how do we know? How do we know which users fit this profile? And if you pick the wrong users, sometimes there may be penalties associated with these agreements. What are the penalties associated with a restricted use license that in effect isn't restricted use? And if you're in these penalties, how do you know that your performance that week wasn't on average worse through the cloud from your vendor from performance in other weeks, so that if you've gone over the line by a bit, in fact, the right redress is to say to your vendor, hey, your cloud was slower this week and it's not our fault and we shouldn't pay these penalties. So there's a lot to think about here. The bottom line is that Knoa user and experience performance management technology eliminates the cloud visibility gap because we're capturing data at the desktop. At the desktop, we're seeing the exact performance. And even for some products that will claim to give you a browser-based response, they really don't have it. They're measuring something back through a server called browser ready. So the first problem you have is they're server integrated. And the second problem you have is that browser ready is not the same as data is on the screen and viewable. We know from the moment the user hits the enter key to the time that the screen is visible and viewable to them. We know if they're active in the application versus inactive. We understand their adoption and their utilization, and we can tell you everything they did, every system error and every user area they experience, and even the workflow that they went through during a day. So all of this gives you visibility to close the cloud visibility gap and do a much more effective job of managing your vendor relationship. There are other solution sets to talk about another day, but please be advised that beyond restricted use licenses and SLA management, there's a lot of other things that we can do to add value to large Salesforce implementations. Now, this is a projected model for customer benefits across all our use cases. We can just look at the lower right-hand corner. And in this case, out of 6,000 users, we estimated 625 might have a restricted use license for a sales CRM cloud. And in that fictitious scenario, those 625 users might be normally charged $40 a month, but they're going to get an incremental discount from the vendor of 50%, and hence that savings to them by allocating those users to restricted use would be roughly the $20 savings per month times 12 months times 625 users. That's $150,000 annually. Now, there are many people out there with SaaS products that have 5, 10, 20,000 users deployed in the US, a couple of hundred for sure. And for those customers, this number could be much larger. So on a tactical basis, while it is a very tactical savings, it's significant. And that's just for restricted use. We're not talking about then the ability to better manage service level agreements, to say to your vendor, this week, everything ran 8% slower, and it's someplace in your cloud, depending on how you negotiated your agreements. Also to say, look, we have our restricted use agreement, and dear vendor, you're saying we went over the limit, but because your cloud was 8% slower, we would argue, respectfully submitted, that you need to cut us some slack here. So now we move all of the leverage and tools back to large line of business users and enterprise IT to effectively manage your SaaS vendors. Cost benefits for this are very strong. We have lots of analyses like this. Typically we work with a customer and do this. Most customers don't wake up in the morning and buy these tools. They do a return on investment analysis. They see that they'll save $1 million or $2 or $3, and then that's a budget creation event, and certainly we understand that. So here we can deliver quantifiable metrics that enable you to measure the performance of the Salesforce application as delivered to your user, and the ability of your user to effectively execute that application, and ultimately delivers all of the value for which you made your Salesforce investment. Salesforce is a great product, and this is a great tool set to make you more effective. I'd like to acknowledge that Salesforce is a trademark of Salesforce Incorporated, as is the Salesforce Sales Cloud and CRM Cloud. We're delighted to enable you to better support their products. Thank you, and have a great day.